All right, seniors, we are about to tackle Macbeth. We're going to look at Act 1 today. Now, here's the thing. I am not going to read this to you and do the commentary here. What I'm expecting you to do is for you to have already read it. I've got two ways you can do that. You can actually read it in your book. That's what we're doing in class. We're watching a video and following along on our book. Those of you working from home or doing a review right now, I have provided you a link to not only the video we watched in class, but also to a PDF for the No Fear Shakespeare version of this, which has the Shakespearean on one side, but also has the more modernized version. So if you need a refresher, that's there as well. Those of you working at home without, being in-person learning, I realize that the Shakespearean language is a bit of a slog for a lot of you. So that's there so that you kind of know what's going on. This is not to be a replacement for that reading. This is just to be kind of hitting some of the high points of the story so that I can kind of talk about, some of the questions that you may see, which let me pull those up real quick so I can make sure that we, get to all of this. All right, so let me find it. I'm going to have this on the screen. You won't be able to see it, but if you were following along with your weekly agenda, you'll be able to see these, okay? All right, so we're going to look at these scene by scene, and I'm going to switch back and forth, so bear with me. So Act 1, Scene 1, very short. It's only there to set up one thing. First of all, we get to see the witches, who are referred to as witches one time, I believe, in the play. Now, in your book, they call them the witches, but they're actually referred to as the Weird Sisters, spelled W-Y-R-D, which is a reference to the sisters of the Fates. So that's a whole different thing. Fate versus free will is always an issue in Shakespeare's plays, and it's definitely a major component of this. We're going to talk about it a little bit more later. But this is really to set up a couple of things. And remember, plays have a problem that a lot of, like a book wouldn't have. You've got to set up exposition. It can only be done through dialogue. So you have to do some tricks to kind of get some information out there. We've got these witches that come in. They reference Macbeth, the character of Macbeth, so we know they're waiting for him. We also get a really famous line. It's fair is foul and foul is fair, which is really just their opposites. Fair would be, like fair weather, pretty weather, not fair like, equal or fair like pale. He's talking about fair as in beautiful, pretty weather. Foul being the opposite of that. So they're basically not, and this is a mistake kids make on this a lot of times. Like one of your questions asked about this, some of you might write, appearances aren't what they seem. That is really not what's being said here. Actually, they're saying that being said they're opposite. Something that looks good can actually be bad. And that's what we're going to see throughout this. The way people behave, they behave one way and they actually are thinking the opposite. And it really leads you to think how little you can trust people. This is a very dark play. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, it has a lot of things that can be problematic for us to read. Okay? All right, well, that's the end of Scene 1. That's all that it's there for. Now, Scene 2, on the other hand, is, again, an exposition piece that's set up who Macbeth is. We learn a little bit about Macbeth. We get this through the words of the captain, who describes the battle that has just occurred and how great of a warrior Macbeth is. In fact, he's able to cut a person in half, and he does it, judging by this, he does it the hard way, It's not like a cut the guy in half. It's like he shoves the sword in right about at their stomach and just rips it up through the top of their head. He says he unseams him from the nave to the chops. That's pretty scary, all right? So Macbeth's a strong warrior. It basically shows that he's some sort of Superman here that turns the tide of the battle. Him and Banquo, who we're also going to see in a minute, on their own, they're able to do this. So this sets up something important about Macbeth. He's a strong warrior. He's a good leader because people want to follow him. And he is loved by these people, okay? Really important. Okay, so then this captain is led off, and then we have new characters come in. They're minor characters, but they show up throughout the play, and we learn about a character named the Thane of Cawdor. Now, a Thane is just a person who, it's a title of royalty. I'm going to put that in quotation marks here because in Scotland at this time, that's a little iffy if you want to call it that, but they're nobles, all right? And so, a Thane of Cawdor would have land that was associated with him. Macbeth at this time is a Thane. He's the Thane of Glamis, Glamis. And this man, we learned that the Thane of Cawdor actually is a traitor. He tried to ally with some enemy forces, and Macbeth, defeated those forces. Not the Thane of Cawdor, though. Okay, Macbeth has no idea that the Thane of Cawdor was involved. The Thane of Cawdor has been captured, and when the king finds out he's a traitor, he decides, I'm going to have you executed, and I'm going to take your land and give it to Macbeth. This is a really important detail for coming up. Macbeth has no idea he's about to be named Thane of Cawdor. He thinks the Thane of Cawdor is still alive and in good graces, so he doesn't know that. So remember that as we get into scene 3, when we see the witches again. Now, again, there's a lot of exposition in the first probably 40 lines. When I've seen this play, a lot of times those first few lines are skipped because they really aren't important. There's a lot about the witches that are problematic, okay? And a lot of their stuff is cut because they're weird. They don't. Those of you who watched the movie, you saw these actresses pulled it off quite well. But the witches, we're basically just getting here that they're bad. The weird sisters. They're not very kind people. So we know that when they are waiting for Macbeth, they're not trying to do him any favors. It looks like they're there to tempt this man and to cause him some trouble. Now, is Shakespeare in a way trying to say how bad fate is, or the belief in fate? Maybe. I personally believe that when someone is a really strong believer in fate, and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it tends to remove agency from us, where we don't think about doing things. We think that just like, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, so I don't have to try. And it allows us to be lazy and not really think through our choices. And I feel like that's a problem. So maybe Shakespeare agrees with me. I don't know. But the weird sisters basically point out that they're here waiting for Macbeth. And then Macbeth comes in. We see him in his very first line. So foul and fair a day I have not seen. So we get that foul and fair mentioned again. Shakespeare's really good at, like, I want you to key in on something, and he'll kind of put it in there multiple times. Now, you have to be looking. You have to quit reading things like it's just words that have no purpose. Every word is intentional, especially in, like, Shakespeare. It's easy to poke fun at English teachers who stretch things. Did Shakespeare really mean that? He probably did. I mean, the artistry of his writing is on par with stuff that no one can equal. So anyway, Macbeth shows up, and he and Banquo's another main character here, are having a discussion, and the witches approach them. And the witches give 3 prophecies. I hold up three prophecies about Macbeth. They say he's going to be Thane of Glamis, which, by the way, he already is, so that was useless. Say he's going to be Thane of Cawdor, which we know he's about to be named. Dramatic irony there. And then finally, they say he's also going to be the king. Now, initially, Macbeth laughs at it. And he's like, yeah, right. The Thane of Cawdor still lives, and he's a good guy, and I'll never be the king. And the first thing was something I've already done. So he doesn't take any seriousness about this. But guys, when he finds out pretty soon after this that he's going to be named Thane of Cawdor, he makes this thing happen in his head. It happens to all of us. Well, if one came true, then obviously the other one might too. And that ambition starts to creep in. Remember, ambition and the problems it causes us are a main pillar of this play. All right. So Banquo wants to find out a prophecy too. He's like, well, you told all these things about Macbeth. What can you tell me about me? And then the witches give him a bunch of gibberish, okay? They say, lesser than Macbeth and greater, not so happy yet much happier, and thou shalt get kings though thou be none. So they tell him a bunch of contradictions. You're going to be not as happy but happier. You're going to be not as great but greater. You're not going to be a king, but your kids are going to be kings. It's really kind of awkward and very confusing. And when the men look at each other and look back at the witches to try to get clarification, the witches have disappeared. And that's where we find out, that initially Macbeth and Banquo laugh this off. They make a comment about eating of the insane root, which Shakespeare likes to do double meanings with stuff. That could literally mean, like, he's like, did we eat something we shouldn't have, and are we hallucinating? It also could be the insane root is ambition. That once you bite into that, and once you start becoming it, now ambition by itself, there's nothing wrong, but when you start to think about doing things that you shouldn't to gain something because you're at all costs, I have to have this, that's when we cross a line into some really dangerous territory. Okay? So at this point, the news is delivered to Macbeth that he is about to be the Thane of Cawdor. Some of these random nobles show up and they let him know that, and immediately that impacts Macbeth. All of a sudden it clicks with him that, oh my gosh, these weird women I just ran into, maybe they know something. And he really starts thinking about it. Banquo puts up the warning flags. He's like, look, man, I know that this seems like it could be good, but remember, sometimes the powers of evil can tell us little truth to try to win us to ultimate defeat. And it's very smart, wise words. Too bad Macbeth doesn't listen. Again, Macbeth was like, well, how could it be bad? This is a good thing. But he does make references to, he uses the word murder in here, and he doesn't literally mean I'm going to murder the king, but it's meant to make you think that. I mean, Macbeth isn't in line to be the king. For him to become king, the current king, who is well loved by the people, would have to die. There's also some other roadblocks we're going to see. So Macbeth starts to realize that the odds of this aren't good. He talks about the use against the use of nature. We're going to see the term nature appear a lot. We're talking about human nature in this, and it's wrong for you to kill. I mean, Dante's Inferno, I mentioned in class, which was written several centuries before this, I believe, references like the lowest level of hell. There's 3 sub-levels, and it's to kill a kinsman, to kill a guest, or to kill a lord. Those are all the 3 different levels. If Macbeth is to kill the king, he's going to hit all 3 of these. I mean, this is condemning his soul to hell if he was to do this. So he's trying his best to fight that off. And he says a great line, if only he would have stuck with it. He says, "If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir." And again, that's a belief in fate. It's supposed to happen, it's going to happen. And that's good in this instance. You want him to believe that. He's not going to stick with it. I don't think he actually believes it here, to be honest with you. But I do believe that at least at the beginning of these first few scenes, that Macbeth is a good guy. The witches giving him that kernel of hope that he could be something else probably throws him off. And then in a few minutes when we meet his wife, she completes the, erosion of his character. All right. But this is like, when people play the lottery and they convince themselves that, I deserve this. I'm going to win it. I prayed really hard. God's going to allow me to win this. And then they don't win it and they get so depressed and upset. You never had that money, but you feel like you've lost it. And that's kind of where Macbeth is now. He had never dreamed of being king until this point, but now he feels like, hey, maybe this could happen. Okay, this gets us into scene 4. Scene 4 is a scene at the palace where there's a brief discussion about the Thane of Cawdor, who, weirdly enough, approached his death very bravely, even though he was a traitor and a coward in some ways. And the king points out, we're at the top of 332, by the way. He says, there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. Again, that's that appearances versus reality thing that we talked about. We see that show up. Macbeth and the king start talking, and we basically are going to get the information that, the king is very proud of Macbeth, and he plans on, accelerating him to even higher ranks. And, of course, it's somewhat ironic because, Macbeth's thinking about taking that crown, in fact. And then something happens to completely unseat Macbeth, okay? At this point, he's content to just wait and see what happens. But then the king does something that would have been out of character in this time period. Now, to us today, what we know about kings and princes, you would see that the king passes on the crown to his children. Not always the way it was, especially in some of these time periods, where really the person best suited to be king gets to be the king. And honestly, we've already seen that Macbeth's a great warrior and a great leader, so he would make a good king, perhaps. But the king does something weird and decides that he's going to name an heir, which he shouldn't have done. And he names his son, Prince of Cumberland, which means the king in waiting. And that throws Macbeth. He realizes this is a problem. If you're on page 333, he says, "The Prince of Cumberland, that is a step on which I must fall down or leap, for in my way it lies." And then we get the first sign that this guy's cracking. It says, "Stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see." We're going to see him make this prayer. We're going to see Lady Macbeth make a similar prayer, and then Macbeth, I believe, again will echo some of this. Anytime you're praying for your actions to be hidden and for darkness to cover the light, you are in a bad area, and that's definitely where Macbeth is right now. He is asking for evil to cover his actions and his thoughts. So at this point, he's definitely considering, now not just having to kill the king. Now you've got to kill, his son Malcolm as well, the Prince of Cumberland. So big problem, all right? Okay, we go into scene 5 now. And we see, probably the worst, and by worst here I don't mean worst design, I mean like evilest character, Lady Macbeth. She is a horrible person throughout the play. There's a little bit of sympathy you feel for her near the end, but for the most part, she is just a terrible person. So she's reading at the beginning Macbeth's letter he wrote her, and she, if you look on, 334, after she finishes reading about his little, his escapade with the witches, she points out, "Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shall be what thou art promised. Yet I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness that should attend it." And there's more, and it gets worse. You read that. But she points out that, I don't think you got what it takes to do what we need for you to get to this position. She's like, you've got ambition, but you don't have the illness that goes with it. And she even points out it's an illness. Guys, ambition is great. You should have dreams and desires, but hurting others to get them is an illness. It is a bad thing. She is full of it, though. She is like 100% on board with the king's coming here. She's about to find that out, that the king is going to stop by their castle on the way back. And she's like, let's kill him. She doesn't even have any questions about it. It doesn't bother her. She does that whole play there again about, she wants Macbeth to get there so she can basically influence him. She says, pour my spirits into his ear and chastise with the valor of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round. In other words, get here so I can nag you to death. Now, the putting, did she say poison? Spirits in his ear. Now, if you know anything about Shakespeare's writing, and I don't know if this is a direct reference to or not, but in Hamlet, a king is killed by putting poison in his ear. So, the idea here that she's going to, her words are poisonous to Macbeth and to his soul. She wants him to get there so she can push him over the edge because she doesn't think he's going to go through with it. And to be honest with you, he doesn't want to. All right, we find out the king is coming, and then Lady Macbeth does, and at the bottom of 334, she starts praying to the spirits of evil to make her more manly. There are some weird themes in this play about what a man really is like and what a woman is really like, and there's a lot of those gender type issues. And when I say gender issues, I don't mean muddying the line like we do today. They're distinctly this is... Men are evil and terrible, and women are supposed to be motherly and caring. And she says, I don't want to be that now. I want to be the man in this. And she actually, if you want to call it that, her and Macbeth kind of switch places. Macbeth is going to be the more caring person here for a little while. Now, that'll switch back by the time the play is over. We're going to get a crisscross here. Okay, Macbeth comes in and, lets Lady Macbeth know what she already knows, that the Duncan is coming. And, she basically is laying out the plan here for him. She's definitely playing at least in the traditional sense, the man in this. She's like, Duncan's never going to leave here. Then she tells him to, basically, does this be the serpent underneath? Let me see. Yeah. She says, we're on 336. Look like the time, bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. So again, it's that appearances in reality. She's telling him, look, we're gonna set this up. You're gonna be king, but let's pretend to be something else until that. We don't want to get in trouble. So scene 6 shows up. Scene 6 is a transitional scene. It really doesn't have a purpose. It just shows the king and Banquo. They're going to the castle. They meet Lady Macbeth. There's a little bit of irony in that, the king points out how beautiful the castle seems and how sweet it seems, which again, appearances versus reality. Foul is fair, fair is foul. Dramatic irony. We know he's about to die here more than likely. Okay, then we get into scene 7, and I believe this is the last. Yeah, this is the last one for Act 1. Okay, and we're going to start with a soliloquy from Macbeth. Macbeth is basically, we see this in, and remember, soliloquies are the character thinking out loud on stage. These are where we really know what's going on in their head. This is the spot where everything that's said in a soliloquy you can know to be truthful to the way that character feels. And what we learn in this soliloquy is that Macbeth is not sure about killing the king. He points out that, if I could do it and it'd be over, that would be great. But that's not what happens. If I'm to do this, I'm going to have to keep dealing with it. He says, let me find some. He says, but here upon this bank and shoal of time we jump the life to come. But in these cases we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to plague the inventor. So he says, not only do I have to deal with this when I die and what happens to my soul, but I've got to deal with it now, because killing him now is not going to be the end of it. And any of you that have done anything, lied to your parents or something, you realize that just telling the lie is not the end of this situation. Now you have to live up to it. You have to carry this out. You have to make sure you don't screw up. Some of you lie a lot, and you find out you've mixed up some of those things, and you end up putting yourself in a bind. So Macbeth realizes that it's not as simple as Lady Macbeth is presented. It's not just kill the king, I get to be king, the end. He realizes there's a lot more to it. He points out that I'm Duncan's kinsman, his subject, and he's in my house. Remember we talked about Dante's Inferno, those big three. He's like, there's no reason for me to violate this trust and kill him. He also points out, plus I've just been given a new title, which doubled at least his land, and I've got all these new honors. Why rush to go for the other? There's a chance he could still be king. This isn't an impossibility. They're in a country where warfare happens constantly and where people are assassinated all the time. Duncan and his son could be killed on the ride back to the castle. All right? So there's no reason for him to act on this. But, and he even points out, he's like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. He says Duncan's a good king. People love him. He's done nothing to deserve this. The only thing I have is ambition. So you know what? No, I'm out of this. And he backs off. And right away, as he decides, he makes this decision, Lady Macbeth shows up and breaks out the like stereotypical, I need to get you to do something for me, charms that a woman might use. I'm going to say charms lightly because some of this is mean. So she says things like, let's look at a couple of these. We're on 338. She says, was the hope drunk wherein you dress yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it all now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? She's pointing to him basically, do you not love me? Like you said you should. Are you really this much of a coward? She calls his manhood into question, and she makes him basically seem like he's a wimp. I mean, she really attacks him on levels that, men today are still victims to constantly. And it works. Macbeth decides, well, fine. And then he looks at her and he realizes, and I love this line, he says, bring forth, we're on 339, bring forth men, children only, for thy undaunted metal should compose nothing but males. He says, man, there should be no women like you. God, please don't let you have any daughters. And she doesn't seem to care about that. And then as we close out, and usually the endings of acts, there's a rhyming couplet. And anytime you see, there's actually a couple throughout this act. But anytime you see Shakespeare rhyming, pay attention. He says, away and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what false heart doth show. Okay, so he's basically, again, appearances versus reality. We need to fake it so that people won't realize what we've done and what we're thinking about doing, all right? Now, that's the end of this act. Hopefully that gives you the answers to the questions you have on your notes for Act 1. Here's what I'd like you to do if they don't. If there's something that you're confused about, you're not sure about, contact me. Okay, those of you who have me in class and are here in person, come see me. Those of you who are working from home, who don't have that option, email me. All right. For some reason, none of my at-home students ever email me about stuff. Send me a message and say, hey, Mr. Morris, I'm not sure about this particular answer. Could you help me with that? And I'll help you. I mean, I would like to interact with you guys more than I do. Most of you, you disappear, and I see you for the occasional work turn-in. And that's not how this is supposed to work. All right. Okay. That's Act 1. We're 22 minutes in. This is a good stopping spot. No reason to drag it out. We're going to look at Act 2 later. I may not have the film up or the video up for it tomorrow because in class we're actually still halfway through it. So I'm a little behind. That's probably going to happen. That's going to be made up because on the project days we're not going to do the project. So we've got 3 days built in where I can get caught up. So as the videos are posted, I'll be in touch with you. Okay. All right, guys, I hope this is helpful. I hope you're enjoying Macbeth. Most of my students like it. It's a good play. It really is. It's beautifully written. It's really the peak of some of Shakespeare's work. It's amazing. I'm going to give you some trivia about it as we go through into the next act. There's some really neat things about this play that if you're a theater person, you probably already know. So, all right, well, let's stop there. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again virtually for Act 2.